Death at Devil's Bridge, Chapter 14. And did none of the four return, not one? Not as expected, certainly. The whole affair was monstrous great mystery and caused everyone a great deal of grief, but it was feared that they were all four lost or dead, and were any dead. Bear Bardwell, The Missing Pearl. Had Lady Henrietta Marston been a spectator when the winning motor car arrived triumphantly in Farmer Styles's field, she would no doubt have been appalled at the sight of her youngest daughter clasped in the fervent embrace of the third and unproprieted son of Lord Langattock. But Lady Henrietta and Lord Christopher were safely in France, or at least it was supposed that they were, and Mrs. Marston and the Honourable Charles Rolls were almost as unrestrainedly enthusiastic in their greetings as were Lady Catherine and her husband. And why not? Mrs. Marston loved Mr. Rolls, or so she told herself, and Mr. Rolls loved Miss Marston, or so he told her. And in any event, each was very glad to see the other alive, for they had been entertained their private doubts over the past several hours whether that might not be the case. The party remained in Farmer Styles's field for another hour, exchanging tales of the twin journeys, passing the time while they waited, in vain, for, as it transpired, for the first contestant to arrive. During the interval, Patsy photographed the collapsed balloon, the intrepid balloonist, while Kate related the story of Tom Whipple's sabotage of the balloon. "So that's how it happened," Charles exclaimed. "I'm glad I was not to blame," Rolls muttered. "I fear I had been careless when I tied the thing to the side of the gondola." His face grew grim. "The question is, what's to be done with the wretched man? He could have killed us." "The constable has Whipple in custody at the moment," Patsy said. "But is there any evidence against him?" Charles asked. "Any eye-witnesses to the act? If not, he cannot be held for long." Kate frowned. No one stepped forward, and Whipple, of course, denied the accusation. Charles shrugged. "Well, we shall see," he said. "I shall speak to Ned when we return." When there was still no sign of the contestants and their motor cars by 1 o'clock, Kate, thinking of their dinner guests and mindful of the situation in the kitchen at home, suggested that she and Patsy go back to Bishop's Keep. "I'm not anxious to drive Mr. Rolls' motor car, though," she confessed, thinking that it was just as miraculous that she and Patsy had reached the balloon in one piece as it was that Charles and Mr. Rolls had gotten to the ground safely. "I suppose we should return too," Rolls said nervously. "I'm concerned about Dunstable." He glanced at Kate. "He did not put in an appearance." "I did not see him," Kate said with a shake of her head. So Lawrence and Pocket were instructed to remain until tea time and to telegraph if the other drivers put in an appearance. With Rolls at the wheel and Charles beside him, Kate and Patsy in the rear-facing seat behind, the Peugeot started back to Bishop's Keep, through Vicks and Bradfield, to Mistley, and thence to Manningtree, Dedham, and then home. To Kate, the return, although dirty, noisy, and wearisome, was a considerable degree safer than her own outward-bound journey, and much more agreeable, because Charles was safe and within arm's reach. There remained still a mystery to be solved, though. 4 mysteries, as it were. "I still cannot understand," Rolls fretted, "how all 4 of the motor cars should have failed to arrive. Even if they might have had trouble or had a breakdown, I should think we would have encountered at least one of them by now." "They must have taken different ways," Patsy said. "And wasn't it the point of the chase that each driver should choose his own course?" Kate asked. "The one that would get him to the balloon the fastest?" "But you chose the fastest course," Rolls replied reasonably. "Where the devil are the others?" The first mystery was solved a little later on the outskirts of Mistley, where they encountered a disgruntled Arnold Bateman. His Bateman electric was being towed by a nervous horse while he plodded wearily alongside, his head bowed, his clothing thick with dust. The horse reared and snorted, and Bateman and the animal's owner had to hold it while Rolls eased the Peugeot past. He stopped on the verge, and they all walked back, Patsy carrying her camera. Bateman did not smile when they greeted him. "One," he grunted. "The ladies," Rolls said with a rueful laugh and gestured at Kate. "They commandeered my Peugeot." Bateman stared uncomprehendingly at Kate. "You?" Kate nodded. "It must be ruled an unofficial victory, however," Rolls said quickly. "They were not registered as contestants." "Oh, come now," Patsy said in a reproving tone, stepping back to take a photograph. Bateman's expression had lost some of its grimness, and he almost smiled. "Well, at least Dunstable and that deuced German didn't get there first." He looked at Charles. "Speaking of Dunstable, has anyone discovered what happened to the man?" "I don't know," Charles said, "but I expect we shall hear about it when he turns up." "If he turns up," Bateman said. Kate wondered at his chuckle, which held no mirth. Rolls cleared his throat. "Oh, I'm sure he will join us for dinner," he said uneasily. Kate glanced from Bateman to Rolls, wondering whether they knew something of the promoter's disappearance, but she could tell nothing from their faces. "You will be there, I hope, Mr. Bateman. I hope so too, Bateman said. He and the tow horse exchanged malignant glances, and the horse flicked its tail contemptuously, but I made no promises. It was 3 o'clock by Charles' pocket watch when the Peugeot arrived at Bishop's Keep, where the harvest fleet was still joyfully on the way. The roundabout was turning merrily, the tea tent was overflowing with thirsty fairgoers, and the motor cars on exhibit were still surrounded by well-dressed gentlemen with their hands in their pockets, putting their heads to one side or the other, pretending to decide on purchase. The Lego mutton climb was over, and in the temporary pavilion the band was striking up for the dance, which was always held early so that families with small children could make their way home before dark. Rolls and Patsy deposited the passengers and drove to Marston Manor, Rolls promising to return shortly, Patsy agreeing to come with Aunt Penelope for dinner. Charles would have followed Kate upstairs to change out of his muddy clothing, but he was accosted by Sam Holt as he crossed the terrace. "So, Charles," Holt cried excitedly, "glad to see you back safe and sound. What car won the chase?" He pulled out a notebook and pencil. "Urgent business or press called me back to London," he added importantly, "but I can't leave without knowing how it turned out." "The Peugeot won," Charles said, looking around. "Have you seen Lord Bradford?" "The Peugeot!" Holt exclaimed. "You mean the ladies?" "Yes," Charles said. "The ladies, indeed." "Ah, Bradford," he said, as his friend hurrying up the broad terrace step. "You're safe," Bradford exclaimed with unmistakable relief. "And Rolls?" "Safe too, and the balloon was not too damaged. It was a near thing, though." Bradford clapped him on the back. "Well, man, who won the chase? Was it Albrecht?" "Kate and your sister," Charles said, and laughed at his friend's surprise and evident chagrin. He had spoken proudly, for he was impressed with Kate's mechanical ability and with her courage as well. Not many men would have made the attempt to motor such a distance in an unfamiliar vehicle. But the news did not please Bradford. "What of the other cars?" "Bateman's electric lost power the other side of Mistley and is being towed back. The others?" Charles shrugged. "Who knows?" "3 motor cars are missing," Holt asked. He pulled out his watch and scowled at it. "Confound it all, if I don't leave right now I'll miss the last up train." "Be on your way then," Bradford said crossly. "I'll telegraph you the results as soon as we have them." Holt shrugged. "It's been a fool's errand," he said gloomily. "If I go back, at least I'll get a decent meal." As the man scurried off, Bradford sighed. "This whole thing has been a fool's errand," he said, his face darkened. "I suppose Kate told you about Whipple and his mischief." "Yes, I'm not sure what can be done about it, though," Charles replied. "No one actually saw the man put the grapnel down. No one has yet come forward, and there was quite a melee and a great deal of confusion. The constable took Whipple into custody, however. His action calmed them down, and after a while the crowd dispersed. He looked out over the feet ground with a worried expression. I am not sure it was wise, however. I've seen small groups of men with their heads together muttering. They resent one of their number being held, I'm sure." "I'm sure they do," Charles agreed soberly. "Even with the witness, I doubt it could be proved that the man acted with malicious intent. The sabotage might have been an impulse of the moment and instantly regretted, or it might have come about by accident. I doubt if Rolls could swear that he had probably fastened the lines. That he probably fastened the line. Since no lasting harm was done, perhaps it would be best to release Whipple." "I suppose you're right," Bradford muttered, "although you might have to talk with him to see if he was put up to it, or ask the constable to." Charles raised his head and caught sight of Edward Lakin walking across the gravel apron toward them. "Speak of the devil, hello, Ned." "Ah, you returned," the constable exclaimed warmly, "and no worse for the experience from the look of you." "It was a near thing, though," Charles said. "Without the grapnel and in the absence of an experienced pilot," he glanced at Bradford. Bradford coloured. "I'm sorry, old man," he muttered. "Dunstable said, I certainly did not intend any harm should come," he faltered. "You must tell me about it," Charles said. "Later." Turning back to the constable, he asked, "Whipple is in your custody?" "He was." Lincoln gave him an apologetic look. "I'm sorry I wasn't there to quell this morning's riot, Charles. One of the children fell from the roundabout, and the father and I had to carry her to Dr. Bassett's surgery. The trouble happened while I was gone. I fear that I did not do my duty." "Nothing of the sort, Ned," Charles said. "I hope the child was not badly hurt." "No, not badly. As to the Whipple matter, after interviewing the man, I concluded that since there was no witnesses to his action, he could not be charged with anything more serious than disorderly conduct. Squire Thornton arrived about that time to stand his bail. I explained as much to the squire, and we agreed that we are not likely to get to the bottom of the grapnel business. But that is not the news I came to bring you." He turned to Bradford with the formality he always used in his address to the man, even though they too had known one another as boys. "I'm sorry to say, old Bradford, that one of the motor car drivers has landed himself in jail." "Ah," Charles said, raising an eyebrow. "So the second mystery is solved. That leaves 2. I don't know about that, Lakin replied, but I received a telegram from P.C. Bradley of Manningtree some few moments ago. A smile glimmered across his mouth. He is holding a Mr. Frank Ponsonby who was apprehended driving his Benz with reckless abandon. His speed was above the new limit of 12 miles an hour, which unfortunately puts it much above the limit, which is in effect until November. Ponsonby, Bradford exclaimed. He was warned to drive slowly through villages, he paused. But why is the man in jail? Why didn't he simply pay his fine and get on with the chase? Edward's smile was ironic. I doubt it was Ponsonby's speed that led to his incarceration. More likely, it was his language, unbefitting a gentleman, according to Bradley, and showing extreme disrespect for Her Majesty's constabulary. This, after Ponsonby failed to stop for a flock of geese at the foot of High Street. It seems there were a few feathers ruffled, he added with dry humour, and some damage to the motor car. Charles chuckled, imagining Frank Ponsonby frustrated by a snowstorm of goose down. What's to be done? An apology would go a long way towards smoothing things. Edward looked at Bradford. Perhaps you should drive to Manningtree, Lord Bradford. I would be glad to go with you. Not in my Daimler, unfortunately, Bradford says sourly. Albrecht hasn't turned up yet. We'll have to take the gig. One motor car is probably enough for P.C. Bradley in one day in any event, Lakin said. The Daimler hasn't finished yet. I thought Albrecht was expected to win. None of the contestants has finished, Charles said, and told him, not without pride, of Kate's triumph. Ah, Lakin said and smiled. Now that the lady has learned to drive, you shall have to buy her a motor car. Oh, dear heaven, Charles exclaimed. There is no stopping her already. What would she be like if she had several horsepower at her command? Lakin laughed and then asked more soberly, what of the other motor cars? Bateman's electric is on its way here behind a horse, Charles replied. And now that we located Ponsonby's Benz, we're only missing the Daimler and the Sir Pellew steamer. And Harry Dunstable, Bradford remarked. Charles stared at him. He still has not put in an appearance? Where the devil was the man? Bradford shook his head. Dunstable is a man of many parts, and not all of them are savoury, but he has never played a trick of this sort, and beginning to think something has happened to him. That idea had occurred to Charles as well. Kate had planned that night's dinner party for 8 o'clock, with the guests expected at 7. It was to be a triumphant affair, 7 courses with 3 Georgian silver candelabra, flowers from the hothouse and the best china, during which the intrepid aeronauts, the victorious motorcar drivers, and the organisers of the exhibition were to be toasted in champagne. The situation had altered dramatically, however, on all fronts. After changing out of their mud-stained dress, Kate went down to the kitchen in search of a cup of tea and a discussion with cook about dinner. But the kitchen was filled with sulphurous fumes, and Mrs. Pratt, with streaming eyes and a red face, looked as if she herself were ready to explode. Kate braced herself against the blast. "It's the gas cooker, your ladyship, mum," Mrs. Pratt rasped hoarsely. "'T won't stay lit, sputters and burns yellow, stare blue." Coughing, she waved a towel in front of her face. "Smells like the divil itself, begging your ladyship pardons." "Well, shut the thing off, for heaven's sake," Kate exclaimed, shooting the action to the words. "And stop ladyshipping me and open the doors and windows. The cooker can't be used until we discover what's wrong with it. I'll send for Sir Charles." What was wrong with the gas cooker, apparently, was the gas itself. Appealed to by his anxious wife and hysterical cook, Charles went out to the gas plant and discovered that after the balloon had been launched, Thompson had stoked the retort from an old batch of soft coal, all that was left of the coal supply. It had proved to be unfit for gas generation. "I fear," Charles said, when he explained this to Kate and Mrs. Pratt, "that you will not be able to operate the gas cooker until we have obtained better coal." "No gas? Then what's to be done about dinner?" Mrs. Pratt demanded angrily. "What's to be done, I ask ye? I can work miracles, but even loaves and fishes got to be baked." "We shall have a cup of tea and a biscuit," Kate said firmly, "and discuss it." 10 minutes later, the kitchen aired, the tea brewed from a kettle on an open fire, and calm, more or less, had been restored. They sat down over the tea and conferred upon the menu. It was to have included hors d'oeuvre, oysters, prawn, olives, and anchovies, consomme de volaille, sole belgravia, filet in puff pastry, quail in aspic, artichoke bottoms with French beans, and vegetable croquettes with a moulded Bavarian pudding for dessert, and fruit, of course. None of which, Mrs. Pratt said bitterly, can be made up without a good range. She cast a malevolent glance at the gas cooker. "Especially the puff pastry. That's an art, you know, your ladyship. Pastry don't jump into the pan ready-made." "What about the old coal range?" Kate asked. "Could it be brought back in to replace the gas cooker? I know a coal is not what it should be, but..." With a dramatic gesture, Mrs. Pratt clasped her hands on her bosom. "Get me the old coal stove back again?" she cried. "Oh, your ladyship, that would be the dearest wish of me heart. Perhaps 'twill smoke some, but I know how to fix that." "Can it be done, I wonder?" Kate mused. It could, and it was. The task required several strong men and much grunting and heaving, but in half an hour the new cooker was gone, and the old coal range was restored to its former place. It was already under attack by Harriet and the blacking brush. Mrs. Pratt was bustling around with energy and purpose, and dinner looked as if it might indeed be forthcoming. "At what time may we expect the first course, do you think?" Kate asked anxiously. Pratt's confidence restored, she glanced at the clock. 10, mayhap," she said imperiously, "considering how much there is to do. The fillet of puff pastry and all, I mean." "Then perhaps you can substitute something simpler for the fillet," Kate said. "Today has been disastrous for everyone. If dinner is delayed until 10, I guess we'll either be asleep or in the cups or both." She stood up, stretching wearily. "I must confer with Maud about something I want him to do. Then I shall be in my room if I'm wanted." Mrs. Pratt shifted uncomfortably. "I wonder," she said, "if I could have a word with your ladyship about—" Kate sighed. "There is something else to be decided about dinner?" "No, Mum. It has to do with this morning and the balloon. I was there, you see, with Bess watching the balloon go up." Her voice grew dark. "I was there and I saw Squire Thornton." Cook showed signs of rambling, and Kate was very tired. She shook her head decidedly. "Since this does not concern dinner, Mrs. Pratt, let us delay it until later. I have had a long drive today, and I'm very tired." Mrs. Pratt mumbling something in a dissatisfied tone, but Kate was determined. After some searching, she found Mutt in the pantry, inspecting the crystal for the dinner that night. "Ah, Mutt," she said, "I wonder if you would be so kind as to help me with a bit of sleuthing." Mutt looked up quickly. "Sleuthing, Mum?" Kate smiled. She had counted on Mutt once before to help her apprehending the villain who had poisoned her 2 aunts. His assistance had proved invaluable. Now she needed to use him again, this time, though, in the pursuit of a fictional criminal. Beryl Bardwell's latest fantastical plot demanded that the villain be identified through fingerprints he had left on a crystal goblet. Kate wanted to see what practical problems would be encountered in performing this procedure. Fingerprints were a very new tool in the scientific investigation of crime, and as of yet almost entirely untested. Mark Twain, of course, had used the idea in an 1883 book called Life on the Mississippi, where a bloody thumbprint held the key to the identity of a killer, and again in 1894 in Pudd'nhead Wilson. In the same year, Francis Galton had published a book called Fingerprints, a copy of which Charles had in his library. It laid out Galton's system for identifying the 4 basic types of fingerprints and proposed that the police adopt the practice of fingerprinting everyone they questioned. The conservative police did not seem anxious to do this, but that made the process even more useful to Beryl, whose female detective would use it to steal a march on the police. Kate spent a few minutes showing Mutt what she needed him to do, a very simple thing really, and then started upstairs, hoping to have some time to herself before she had to face what promised to be a trying evening. As she went upstairs, however, she was distracted by a loud cheering in the park, where the dance was coming to its scheduled close in the pavilion. She went to the hallway window and saw a team of Belgian draft horses lumberingly heavily up the gravel lane, dragging the Serpollet steamer behind them, to the delight of the onlookers who had deserted their dancing to cheer the horses. At the tiller of the disabled motor car, wearing a look of injured dignity, sat Arthur Dixon. The 3rd motor car had been found.